Hello everyone. This is a tutorial on the Word Session 2.2. This is for the Office 2016 class. I'm recording this on September 14, 2020. So this lesson here is probably going to be one of the more important ones that you're going to get out of this class. And the reason I say that is understanding how to do what's called an MLA format using the MLA style guide is a pretty basic sort of skill set. And this is what the chapter looks like. This is essentially the top of the first page of the document that you're going to produce. It's going to look a little bit like this when you get to the very end. So this is an image of the very last page of this document. So you want to pay attention to these things because these are all clues for you to know exactly how this thing should look when you're finished up. So again, if you go to page WD92, top of page 1 is going to look exactly like this. So use all the clues that you have, and all of these little pieces kind of come together. It's not very common where someone asks you to do a job and doesn't tell you anything about it. So when a professor or when an employer tells you to do something that's never been done before, or that there is no example or sample for, that's a pretty bad job, or you're getting very highly paid to invent things. I've had both situations happen to me, but I also have experienced times when I've been asked to do something that I knew was a routine job and I wasn't told what it should look like. That's why I'm kind of pointing this out, which seems really elementary in some ways, but you are given clues all along the way as to exactly what this thing should look like. So now I'm going to kind of dish out of this particular book, and I'm just going to use the book on my desk. But this is where we're going to be starting. So just make sure that this is the section that you're going to be working on. So if I come back to our class here, I'm looking at the Word Tutorial Module 2. So I've already developed a video for session 2.1. And in the step on page 94, I'll just come back there to give you the first little tidbit. So on page WD 94, come on, near the bottom, remember you've got these tan colored boxes. We're simply moving through these tan colored boxes. Okay, first step is to go open the document called Ancient, and it's located in the Word 2 folder, and it's within the module folder underneath of Word 2. So I'm going to go back, find the files that I created for this particular class. Remember, we downloaded them during the first class. I'm looking for module. There it is. I double click on it, and there is Ancient. So there's our Ancient. If I double click on Ancient, it brings up the template for this particular document. I'm going to enable editing, and this is just the starter file here. Step 2 on page 95 says make sure the Home tab is selected. Whoops, I'm sorry, wrong page. Page 94, they're asking you to save the document as Ancient Architecture. So I'm going to choose File, Save As. I'm going to click Browse. I want to put this thing in exactly the right folder. So it goes in Word 2, Module, and I'm going to call this one, my initials, Ancient Architecture. And choose Save. And I'm on step 2. It says to make sure that you're in the print mode, so down here at the bottom, in the status bar, we want to make sure that we're in print layout. Okay, so there it is. The screen tip shows print layout. I'm moving on to step 3 at the bottom of page 94. Review the document to familiarize yourself with the structure. So some of the things that you're going to notice here are there's these little section headers. So this is considered a section header, and this is a paragraph of text. Okay, so section header, paragraph of text. Those are two different things. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. Some students just treat them all the same, but the section headers are different than the text itself. So on page 95, if you look at the picture on page 222, or figure 2-22, it says some simple guidelines for MLA style is to double space the entire document, remove paragraph spacing from the entire document, increase the font size, blah, 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 blah. There's lots of different stuff there. Here's the interesting thing about MLA is that it changes from time to time. So it's not always the same. And some folks actually ask, what is this all about? Why do they make it so complicated? Well, actually, they're trying to help you. And the reason I say that is, imagine if you were supposed to be making a recipe and the recipe said, put some flour and put some sugar and put some water and put some yeast in a bowl. That's ridiculously unclear, and you'd never be able to make this recipe without making thousands, if not millions, of mistakes until you perfected it, because you don't have any idea how much of these things. You don't know what kind. There's different types of yeast, there's different types of flour, there's different types of sugar. And so the recipes are very specific. And so some recipes will be more specific than others, but at the very least they'll tell you how much of each. And they don't just say 2 sugar, they say 2 grams of sugar, or 2 cups of sugar, or 2 tablespoons, or 2 teaspoons. And those are the style guides for cooking. So we know what that is. Imagine a builder who didn't have a tape measure or some sort of measuring device. Imagine a builder who wasn't told if the house was supposed to be built using English or metric units. Those are the style guides for builders. So units of measurement. So MLA is a style guide for writing. Very, very simple. And with that style guide, you get a lot of different specific bits of instruction. So one of the simplest things that I tell students is if you type in sample MLA paper into a Google search, it's probably going to bring you about, well, you can see it, over 1 million results. But you need to develop some skills in finding things like this. But if I click on the MLA sample paper from the Purdue OWL Writing Lab, you can see that I'm given an exact sample of what this should look like. So if you get confused in the future, this is very, very, very doable for each one of you. So if you look at this particular paper, it gives you these boxes which describe exactly why or where or how to do things. Okay? So what it's telling you here is that in this version of MLA, you should be putting the page number on page 1. But in our lesson here, you're going to have some differences there because this is the latest resource. Okay, it adheres to the 2016 updates for MLA. Our book was written before that, so it's using a previous version of MLA. But you can get this information very, very easily. So here's the MLA style on the left. There's the Chicago style, if you're asked to use that. There's the APA style, if you're asked to use that. There's lots of different styles, just like there's lots of different units of measurement. And again, these are designed to help you, not to make things more difficult. So let's go back to our paper here. And we're going to begin applying the MLA formatting to the document on page WD95. So we're going to press the Step 1 at the bottom of page 95 says press the Control key and the A key, and that highlights your entire document. So make sure you got the Home tab selected, and we want to go to the paragraph group, which is here. We're going to pick the line spacing option, which is right there. Click one time on that, and then choose 2.0 so that the lines are separated just a little further. So we're not using the paragraphs, pressing the Enter key to control the spacing. We're just using the line spacing option, and it does that to your entire document. Everything is double spaced because that's a requirement of MLA. Now, step 4, it says to click that button again, and it says to click on the remove space after a paragraph. And so what it does is it makes all of them equal. So if I undo that, you can see that after the end of a paragraph, if I didn't remove the space, there's a little tiny bit of extra space there. So we want to make sure that you've got this remove space after paragraph selected, and all of the spacing is identical. I've still got everything selected in my document, where I'm going to double check and make sure everything is selected. And this time I want to change the default font for this document to 12. So 12-point font size. Again, it doesn't matter. That's just the requirement for MLA, just like the length of an inch. You don't know why it's that size, it's just the way it is. So now, step 6 says to click somewhere in the document to deselect it. And now go to the first paragraph of the document and replace Carolina Fry's name with yours. And then it says to save the document. So you can click the Save button, you could press Control S, you could choose File Save, all those things. The picture on page 96, okay, this might be worth looking at for you because it gives you an idea of what the different types of indenting are called. So those names really do matter, because if you don't know what they're called, you won't be able to even look for help to be able to understand what each one of them means. Okay? So you might want to just flip through that. So there's hanging indents, there's left indents, there's right indents. We're going to use a little bit of each one of those in this chapter. So page 97. On the first page of the document below the title, click in. So here's the title. So click anywhere in the first main paragraph, which begins with throughout history. So that's step 1. So cross that off. Move to step 2, and on the horizontal ruler, so that's this thing up here, look really closely at step number 2, because there's 3 tiny little they almost like little triangles, little houses, but they're 3 different things. One of them is the left indent, one of them is a hanging indent, and the one at the very top is the first line indent. So it's telling us in step 3, or actually on step 2, on the horizontal ruler, position the mouse pointer over the first line indent marker. Okay, so move off of it if you need to. And so the first line indent is the downward facing arrow with a flat top on it. Press and hold that button, and then drag the first line indent marker to the right to 1/2 of an inch, which is right there. Okay, so that moves it over to 1/2 an inch. So that first line is now indented because, remember, our insertion point was inside the first paragraph, and it's moved over now. So we've moved down to step 4. So check the picture on page 97 if you couldn't see that on my screen, but it moves it over 1/2 an inch. Now it says to click anywhere in the next paragraph, which starts with "in this paper." We want to do the exact same thing. Go back up to the first line, indent, and take your time and make this work for you. So we just dragged it over. So on step 5, it's saying you could continue to drag the indent marker to indent the first line of the remaining body paragraphs, but it's faster to use the repeat button on the quick access toolbar. So this is the repeat button. So it's like a clockwise circle with an arrow on it. And if I hover over top of it, it even says repeat formatting Control Y. So we want to scroll down and click in the paragraph that says according to Alicia Garland and do the repeat. So it does the same thing. We want to move down to the next paragraph, the rise of agriculture, and do the same thing. Now I know very, very easily where the beginning of the next paragraph is because I have the show hide paragraph marks on. If I didn't have that on, it's going to be a lot more difficult. I'm going to go down to the Neolithic societies. I'm going to repeat the formatting. I'm going to go down to the most stunning, repeat the formatting. Notice that I'm not doing this for the section headers. I'm only doing it for the paragraphs. So that Egyptian construction line stays put, just like the one up here, the Neolithic settlements. Those stay left justified. All right, so I'm going to come down here a little further. There's probably another one. Stone was typically reserved. Repeat the formatting. The two most important types. Repeat the formatting. Ancient Greek architects. Repeat the formatting. And line beneath Roman achievement, which is the ancient Romans adopted Greek, indent that one. Okay, so it looks like I have an indent after every paragraph mark that I see on my screen. Oh, I missed one right here. Boom. Okay, so I'm just going back up and I'm double checking to make sure that I've done everything I should do. Remember, the section headers stay put. And now it looks like I've got it. Okay. Okay, so we finished up on page 97 here, and you should just go back and double check and just make sure that all of the beginning of your paragraphs are set up properly. Remember, I have my show hide paragraph marks turned on here, and that makes it much easier for me to make sure that it looks like it does on my screen here. So you've got a lot of clues about how this should look. Okay, I'm going to move over to the bottom of page 98. And I want to add page numbers to the research paper. And it says press the control key down and hold it, and also press the home key. Well, if you don't know where all those things are at or how they work, you can just press the, you can just scroll up and get to the top of your document, which is where that, her starts. So in your paper, it should actually have your name now. On the ribbon, we want to click on the Insert tab up here. Click on Insert. Now we're looking for page numbers. And if you notice over here, under the header and footer group, that's where the page number is located. So if we click on that page number, it gives us a bunch of options. So for MLA, they're requiring us to place this at the top of the page, but we also have some other options to work with here. There's the plain number 1, there's the plain number 2, there's the plain number 3, blah, blah, blah. Here you have some flexibility, but it's saying the plain number 3 is no formatting and no accents. So that's the one that we're going to choose. I'm not touching anything at this point. This is just the way it wound up. Now it says to type on step 6. Okay. Step 6, it says type your last name and then press the space bar like this. Her space, and there's still a number 1 at the very top of the screen there. I'm still in the header because you can see these things that are listed over here, which is unusual. We want to go to the mini toolbar here. I can't find the mini toolbar. So where'd the mini toolbar go? I'm going to have to go to the Home tab, and I'm going to have to change the font size to 12. So all of that stuff in the header gets to be the same size. And then if you end up with right squiggles or things like that on your name, you can right click on them and you could choose to ignore all the occurrences of that. Make sure that your name really is in 12-point font like the rest of the document. You can highlight it, whatever. But again, remember, I'm in the header now. I'm not working in the document itself. That's all kind of grayed out at this point. On the, let's see, bottom of page 99, it says to click the page number field to display the gray background. Okay? And there's a picture on page 100 which kind of shows that. Scroll down and observe the page numbers at the top of every other page. So you could see it automatically placed those headers on all the other pages for me. So we want to make sure that we're on the header in the first page. And if you notice at the very top of your screen now, there's a new menu item, a new tab, and it's called Header and Footer. If I click on the Header and Footer tab, it gives me some other options. So you can choose this option that says different first page. So different first page means basically start on page 2. So if I click on that checkbox and I move down to page 2, the numbering doesn't change. It's just that the page number doesn't show up on page 1. There's a red check mark here. You can close the footer and header, and now it takes you back to the rest of your document. And if you scroll down, you can still see that now it's listed here. Okay, folks, on page 103, I'm going to select a style for the citation and the bibliography. So if you don't know what citations or bibliography are, you might want to check those out. But citations appear within the body of your document. The bibliography-ish appears at the end. Okay, so those are two different things. So bottom of page 103, on the ribbon, click the References tab. Okay, so there's the References tab. And in the Citations and Bibliography group, so find that, it's kind of in the middle, on my screen anyway, there's a Style button that's located here. And right now, if I click that little arrow, I have a bunch of different options. We're going to use the MLA 7th edition. If you're asked to do a different type of style, it is possible to add those to Word. There's some instructions online for that, but usually these are enough for people to work with. MLA and APA, the first listed, are kind of the most common ones. So make sure it's set to be MLA 7th edition. Now it says to press the Control key and the F key to go to what I call the Find panel, but they call it Navigation. Find seems to be a little more descriptive, but we want to use the Find panel, and we're going to use, or the Navigation pane, and we're going to look for the phrase "as at least one historian." And that's instruction number 4. And you can see that I come up with one option which is listed, or one result which is listed beneath there. And it says, as at least one historian. So that's step 4. So we want to just make sure that we know where we are here. And then click at the end of that sentence. Okay, so as at least one historian, blah, 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 social standing, and we want to, between the end of the word standing and the closing period, Okay, so you got to click real carefully in step 4. So in step 5, it says to close the navigation pane here. So we're just right back to where we were, and I'm in the, wherever the social standing is. I think I've just lost it. All right, so we have our insertion point located here between the period and the word standing. We're on page 104. And now in the citations and bibliography group at the very top, we want to add a new source. Okay, so if we click on Insert Citation and we choose to add a new source, this is like a book or a website or something like that. So when I click on this, it brings up a pane that allows us to enter some information here. So in this case, we're going to create a source, and the type of source is going to be book. The author in step 9, his name is Roy Brower. On step 10, in the title box, we're going to type settlements and monuments in Neolithic architecture. So when you're entering titles and names and things like that in these citations, spelling really does matter, so you'll want to kind of pay attention to that. Year is 2010, and that's in step 11. Step 12 is the city box, and that's going to be New York. And the publisher box, just beneath that, is going to say Brookstone and Cole Scott Academy Press. And then finally, it says in step 12, you'll need to indicate the medium. So if you skip to step 13, the medium refers to is this a book, a journal, is it a website? And then in this case, it's going to be print. So this is a printed book. And then once you have those things filled out, just like I have, so you could pause your video if you're following along, and you can fill it all in just like that. But step 14 is to go to OK. Moving on to page 105, we want to edit the citation. So in the document, right-click on the word Brower. So we want to find out wherever that word Brower is located. So it got placed exactly where we had our insertion point. So you can notice now there's left parenthesis Brower, right parenthesis. So if I click on it, it gives me this little drop-down arrow. And if I click on the arrow that shows up next to it, it gives me citation options. And we want to edit the citation. Okay, edit citation. Brings up a little box. You can see at the bottom of page 105. And we want to type the number 37 for the pages. And then we're going to make sure that type 37 and click OK to close the dialog box. And so now, with none of these other things selected, author, year, title, now we show up with Brower 37. Okay? So it allows you to kind of control that, and it tells you in step 4 that you should see what you see on my screen. We're going to add a couple more citations though, page 106. Scroll up to display the last paragraph on page 1. So page 1, last paragraph is here. Okay. We want to click at the end of the first sentence of the paragraph, which begins according to Alicia Garland. Okay, so according to Alicia Garland, click at the end of the first sentence. So find the period. We can go between the animals and the period. And in step 2 on page 106, in the Citations and Bibliography group, click the Insert Citations button again. And now you'll see that there's an option that shows up there. So we want to, we'll just read through step 2. We want to insert the citation button to open the insert. Notice that Rory Brower's book is now listed. You could choose that book, but this isn't the right citation. We need to get another source. So we want to click on Add a new source. And this is going to be not a book, but a journal article. That's step 3. Step 4 says, show all bibliography fields so we can add more details here. So make sure there's a little check in this little all bibliography fields. And that's step 4. Step 5 on page 106 gives you the author. So this is going to be very similar to what we just did, except it's going to be different information. Alicia Garland, and then the title is pretty long. The Rise of Human Settlements, space, Neolithic Culture and Early Agriculture in Central Asia. Okay. Journal name. So title of the article was what we just typed in. The title of the journal is the Journal of Ancient Architecture and Cultural Studies. The year, so we're going to skip the city. The year is 2015. Pages are 122. Okay, so you got to skip around here a little bit. 122 to 145, and you'll notice that there's little yellow asterisks next to each one. Those indicate the required things. So this panel has more information that you can type into it, but you have to scroll down to get it. So we're going to, the volume is going to be the 30th volume. The issue is going to be the 5th issue, and the medium, a little further down, is called web, the capital W. So once you have that all set, so pause your screen if you need to see my stuff or use your book, whatever. Choose OK on step 6 on page 107. And now, if you notice, we have a new citation that's in that spot, and it's called Garland. And we're going to left click on the word Garland, click on the little arrow for the citation options, and we're going to edit the citation for this one as well. And in the pages, we want to have this as 142, but we want to suppress the author and the title. So we're suppressing them. That means we're going to prevent them from showing up. Once you have it set up this way, so the year can be left unchecked, but the author and title should have a check in them. Now only the number shows up. Okay, so we're going to use our Control F, our navigation. I'm on step 10, and we want to find the sentence that begins with the Neolithic societies, okay? And that's on step 10. Click at the end of the sentence to the left of the period mud. Okay, so there's mud. On my screen, it's just that one sentence fills up that first line. But we want to be between the period and the word. And this time, we're going to go to the References tab in the ribbon. We're going to insert the citation, but this time we're just going to choose Alicia Garland. And it automatically places that in there for us. So we don't have to do anything. We just use all the work that we just did. We have 2 sources, but we have 3 different citations now. So if you flip over to page 108, So on page 108, I'm going to close my navigation pane too. Step 1, press the Control key and the End key to go all the way to the bottom of the document. If you're on a laptop, you might just have to do this manually. So go all the way to the end of the document, go to the Insert tab in the ribbon, and when you're on the Insert tab in the ribbon, we want to insert a page break. So step 3, we're going to insert page break. And we click that, it automatically gives you a additional page. Okay, you'll see it. If you have your show hide paragraph marks, page break actually shows up there. And now there's your cursor is blinking, your insertion point is blinking on that last blank page. So page 109, I'm looking at my very last page, so it's my 5th page. On the ribbon, click the References tab on the ribbon, and this time we're going to click on Bibliography. So Bibliography is listed here. When I click on the arrow here, we want to click on the Works Cited, because that's what MLA requires. And I automatically get the Works Cited bibliography inserted into my document. And flip over to page 110 so you can kind of see what that looks like. And it's asking me to click inside of this document, okay? Click anywhere in the bibliography inside this document, okay? Anywhere in there. And you can kind of see that this is odd. It has a big box around it, has a content control mechanism associated with it. None of those things really need to matter, but if you go over to page 110, you should be matched up with what you see on my screen with what you see in the book. Your document should look the same. So on page 110, bottom, step 1, edit a source. Click in the blank paragraph below the bibliography content control to deselect everything. So we don't want to have anything selected. We want to scroll up to display the first paragraph on page 2. So first paragraph, page 2. Remember, you have page numbers. We want to click Brower 37. Remember, page 2. And in that paragraph just beneath it, there's Brower 37. Click on the arrow to the left of, or excuse me, to the right of it. This time we want to edit the source. So we screwed up. We didn't do this right. We misspelled the name. So whoever gave it to us, me, screwed up. So we need to change that Brower to Brower. So B-A-U-E-R gets changed to B-R-O-W-E-R. And then choose OK. And choose Yes. Okay. And then save your document. So click on the Save button. Page 111, bottom. Step 1, update the bibliography. So scroll back down to your bibliography, the Works Cited list. So we have this all set up here, but now we've got a misspelled name because we screwed up. Roy Brower is supposed to be B-R-O-W-E-R. So if I click on anywhere on my Works Cited list, you can see here there's an Update Citations and Bibliography. If you click on that update, it automatically changes that down below, which makes that relatively handy. So now the last step, and 90% of the students skip this step. If we click one time on the Works Cited heading, go to the Home tab in the ribbon. This time we want to go to the Styles group and click on Normal. Okay. We want to center this the name Works Cited, and now select the entire Works Cited list, including the word Works Cited. We're going to change that to be just like the rest of our document. 12-point font, We want to change the line spacing so that it's 2.0, and we want to remove the space after each paragraph. So now our works cited is formatted exactly like the rest of the document. So works cited is like your heading, your title on the paper, and if we go back up to the top, you could tell that that's centered. And your works cited heading is also centered. These lines are formatted exactly like the rest of the document. The exception here is that this is called a hanging indent. So you can see that Roy Brower, Colescott Academy Press, this is all one entry here. Oops. It's all one entry, those first two lines, Roy Brower, Colescott Academy. So that's called a hanging indent. And automatically works cited lists for MLA papers do it this way because that's one of the requirements. So look on page 112 in your book and you can get an image of this as well. So that's how that should look. The works cited list shows up all on its own. Save your work and you are set. So the next thing for you to do on your own is the review, and that starts on page 113 and goes all the way through page 114. So there's 33 steps. Most of them are fairly simple, but you'll want to go through that just to make sure that all of these concepts that we've gone through make sense to you. All right.